Thank you, Reverend Eric. And good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Great.
Doing well? You look beautiful. So there's that for sure. Are you fully recovered from your turkey coma and your Black Friday shopping? Well, I'm just happy to be here with you and to get to participate in this service today. And Mindy, I want to thank you for that beautiful rendition of that song made famous by Madonna. And maybe on first glance or first listen, it seems like a strange choice for a song at our spiritual service here on Sunday morning. It, at least comparatively with some of the really uplifting and inspirational lyrics we often hear in songs chosen for Sunday service, it's really different. In fact, it might seem more like a Saturday night song than a Sunday morning song, perhaps. But I chose that song deliberately because I think it speaks articulately to this month's theme, which Stephen and Eric just covered, which is what? Knowing. And I think this song speaks eloquently to knowing from a couple different perspectives. So that is why I chose this song today. And certainly it speaks to that in the lyrics where it talks about pain. Now, you may or may not know this song, but did you catch the lyrics about pain from there? Did you hear what it said in regard to pain? It said that pain is a warning that something's wrong. And I suppose from a physical standpoint, if I have a pain in my neck or in my back, I might act on that. I might go out to the doctor and ask for some sort of diagnosis. And so I get pain from that level of indicator that something's wrong. But what about pain in other aspects of our lives, in our friendships and relationships and in our emotional states? I don't know that we always look at pain in those ways as an indicator that something is wrong. And so the song speaks to this idea of knowing, this idea within me, this deep place of wisdom within me, where I know that something has gone awry. The song also discusses freedom and creativity, or creation as it phrases it. And those are things we talk about a lot at Global Truth Center. But it says that freedom comes when you learn to let go. In other words, freedom actually shows up as I stop grasping and white-knuckling and holding on to things that really no longer work for me. That's when I become free. And I become free to then step into the role of creator of my own life. It says creation comes as you learn to say no. And there are lots of us that stand on this stage and speak, and we talk all the time about saying yes to life, about embracing things and welcoming things and welcoming that which is next. But I think no sometimes gets a really bad rap. And so my talk title for today is, and do we have that slide? Okay, there you go. How do you know? So that is my talk title. And you see this beautiful little girl with her hand outstretched in defiance somehow, saying no. And if you see that word there, K-N-O-W, and the K and the W are kind of grayed out and falling away to call to your attention that there is also another level of knowing, of knowing. And according to that song, we step into the ability to create our lives when we learn to say no. So my question then becomes, how strong is your no? What is the quality of your no when you declare it? How strong is it? How creative is it? Do you say no and absolutely mean it? Or do you say no in one moment and waver in the next? And I guess from another perspective, you could say, well, what does it matter whether I say yes or whether I say no? I'm still the creator of my life. What does it matter how or when I say no? And I'm going to share a quote with you, and this is a quote from a man named Robert Augustus Masters, Ph.D., who I read a couple of his books in ministerial school when I was writing my thesis. And my thesis deals with a subject called spiritual bypass. And spiritual bypass generally are the ways that we use spirituality so as not to go through the difficult things in life, so as to bypass them, so I don't have to face the pain or the upset or the turmoil of life. I put a Band-Aid on it and don't really deal with things. And he says this about spiritual bypass and about saying yes and no, and he calls it a specific type of spiritual bypass called blind compassion, something we do as the spiritual mavens that we are. So as not to be seen as not spiritual, right? I have to be compassionate blindly to absolutely everyone and everything, regardless of how you treat me or others. And he says this. He says that with blind compassion, we don't know how to, or we won't learn how to, say no with any real power. Avoiding confrontation at all costs, and as a result, enabling unhealthy patterns to continue. Our yes then becomes anemic and impotent, devoid of the impact it could have if we were also able to access a clear, strong no that emanated from our core. Man, that is powerful to me. And so that is what I am talking about today, the ability to say no and mean it, the ability to say no and allow it to come from our core. And so this is a lesson I got some years ago. Here locally, I was dating someone, and we met and hit it off brilliantly, wonderfully. A great time was had by all, so to speak, and we just had a great time getting to know one another and pursuing what seemed to be a burgeoning relationship. And yet, at some point, I became aware of some of these unhealthy patterns that we're talking about. And the way it felt to me, from my perspective, was that I began to be blamed sometimes for things that I didn't feel like were mine. And so I was willing to talk about that and discuss it and work on it and look at those kinds of issues. And so we continued to date and pursue a relationship and that sort of thing. And then there was an afternoon at my house. We had spent the day together and had a fabulous day, and we made plans. We talked about doing a run to the grocery store late that afternoon or sometime in the early evening. And I live in Camarillo, so we're going to go actually from Camarillo to a grocery store in Ventura, Winco. You may or may not know that store, but they carry some items that I can only find there, and so we're going to drive to Ventura to do some shopping. And I had done a workout outside and came in and showered and got dressed and, was in the bathroom brushing my teeth and putting the finishing touches on my hair and, getting ready to go to the store. And he was in the living room waiting on me. And I finished getting ready and I said, okay, I'm ready if you are. And I start coming out of the bathroom. And he says, yep, I'm ready. And he says, I'll get Bella. And Bella is my dog, my beautiful Boston Terrier. And he said, I'll get Bella. We would put her outside so she'd just get fresh air while we're gone. And he walked into my bedroom to look for her. I came out of the bathroom and glanced in the other direction toward the living room. And I noticed that Bella was laying on the sofa there. And so I just called out to him. I said, honey, actually, she's right out here on the sofa. He said, okay. And he turned around and we put Bella outside and jump in my vehicle and on the road. I'm driving. We're on the 101 North. And as I drive, I extend my right hand across and kind of touch his knee or leg or, in some fashion, thinking that maybe we would spend this drive with the romantic gesture of holding hands or something like that. And what I noticed when I did that was essentially nothing, meaning no response from him whatsoever. And so I began to understand that riding next to me suddenly was some kind of an ice cube or an ice block is the way it felt to me. Like just no emotion whatsoever. And so I gave this a second or two, and then I asked the question, have I done something to upset you? Have I done something to offend you? And silence for a moment, and I asked again, and he answered, and he said, no! About like that. To which I responded, well, based on that response and the pure lack of response as I'm extending my hand to you and trying to be affectionate, I feel like something has happened here. And if this is something that I've done or I've somehow upset you, I would really love it if you would bring that to my attention so that if I need to apologize or make amends in some way, I'd like the opportunity to do that. And again, silence for a moment. And I continue to drive. And finally he says, yes, okay, fine. I will tell you then. Yes, you upset me, and in fact, you do this all the time. I'm getting to the point where I hate this relationship, and I hate you because you always do this to me. You tell me I'm worthless, I'm ugly, and I'm stupid. And I was heartbroken for a moment because those are things I would probably never say to a bitter enemy, let alone to someone that I care about. And so as the old saying goes, we turned that car around and went back to my home in Camarillo, where we continued this. I would like to say we continued a conversation or a discussion, although from my perspective it seemed much more like an onslaught in which he laid out everything I did wrong and the horrible ways that I upset him. And so finally I said, so you have got to help me here. Because if I have ever said any of these things to you, I want to apologize for it. Tell me, how is it that you feel like I have called you stupid? And he looked at me in a way that it should have been obvious to me. And he said, Bella? And I said, okay, sure, what about Bella? And he said, wasn't enough for me just to find her on my own, was it, Kelly? You had to point out that you knew where she was and I didn't. Therefore, you're smarter than me and I'm stupid. And for a split second, I thought I was being punked. Almost felt like a joke. And yet, I could see the emotion in his face and hear it in his voice. And so I knew that this was real to him. And then came the clincher for me. He said, something else that really, really bothers me, that I'm really upset by, is that we only spend one full day together each week, and I want more time with you. Well, this question seemed obvious to me, and I asked it, and I said, why on earth would you want more time with someone who tells you you are worthless or stupid or less than? Why would you want more time with me if I do those things? And that question was received about like you might imagine. And he said to me, I know I should not want more time with you. In fact, I know I should dump you right now and never speak to you again. But I don't have the courage to do it. Well, I thought about this for a minute. It ran through my mind, what is mine here? What is not? How do I proceed here? And it became very clear to me that it was time for me to learn this lesson about the power of goodbye. Because I certainly like to think, at least, that I will own that which is mine when it is appropriate for me to apologize or make amends or take responsibility. But I understood very clearly that this was not mine to fix, nor could I. And so I simply said, since you feel like you don't have the courage to end our relationship, I'm going to loan you mine. And we finished our conversation, we finished our goodbyes, and I walked him to the gate and watched him leave my home for the last time. And as he did that, he left and I turned back to go back to my home, and I remember saying to myself, I'll be damned if I will ever do this again. I will have no relationship before I ever participate in a bad one. And so I drew that line in the sand that day. And in some way, now what I said to myself wasn't phrased in the form of a treatment, but it was absolutely a declaration. And so my questions for you and for us are these. Where in your life do you need to turn the page or close the chapter? Where in your life, be it a relationship or a habit, a behavior, a thought, a belief, where in your life do you need to exercise this power of goodbye? And in what areas of your life are you still yesing when you should be knowing. Really big questions, deep questions. They're important questions because that no, when properly delivered, will lead you to your yes. Because after that evening, and I told him goodbye, it was only a few months after that I met Alfie Argamazzo. Most of you know Alfie, now Alfie Bershinsky, the man I married. And we share a relationship, folks, that is beyond my wildest dreams or expectations. We share a relationship that is kind and loving and understanding and generous, and one in which we give each other the benefit of the doubt. And we share a relationship which for me was not possible before I learned to say no and mean it. So, what am I saying to this auspicious crowd today? I am saying this. I am saying go forth in defiance. Go forth and draw that line in the sand, knowing it is one that you will never, ever cross again. Go forth and say no when you must. Because if you do it, it will lead to yes. And if it is a no that is clear and strong and that absolutely comes from your core, it just might lead you to the yesest yes of your entire life. Happy Sunday, everybody. Much love, who you are.